All right, let's get into the next portion of this project here, our React form. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to initialize or create states for the project, and we are also going to structure the form out. Okay, so we're going to be living in the land of app.js. We're over here now, and let's get. Oh, we'll also be in. We're going to have a form component as well. So we'll migrate to the form component uh, in a second. All right, so let's go to app.js. Here I am in app.js. I'm going to make this just a tad bit bigger, the text, so uh, everyone can see. All right, and now I'm going to get rid of this H1 in a minute. And yes, you got to go over into the stream. I posted the link in the stream. Yeah. So it's not visible in Google Meet. All right. Y'all messing my videos up. All right. So no, I'm gonna keep that app there for right now. But what I want to do is I want to initialize, create state. Okay. So to do that, first thing I need to do is I want to use state, so I need to install or import use state. So I'm going to say import, and again, I'm destructuring the React object, so it's going to be use state from React. Okay, cool, I got it. Now above my return, this is where we're going to put a comment right here. This is what we're doing first. First thing we're going to do is we're going to create state, not start, but create state for the form. We're going to collect the info as needed, and we're going to make this an object, and I'm going to call it form data. So form data is an object. Okay, so that's what we're going to do first. So right below here, I'm going to say const. I say I'm going to call it form data. So form data. And then again, remember when we are using use state, we have an array. Okay, that's what use state is. It's an array. The first item in the array is the container, okay, that we're going to use. And so we're calling it form data. The second item in the array is a function, what we call our setter function. And the setter function, generally, I haven't seen it done any other way, but it's going to be set and then whatever the name of our container is. So I have form data and then set form data. If it was, user, I have user and then set user, et cetera, et cetera. All right. And so there's our array, and then we're going to say we're going to run use state, that method, open it up, and inside of the parentheses is going to be the initial state of our React application. And so here, again, I said form data is an object. So I need to specify here inside of use state that the initial form data is an object, okay? And so I'm going to supply it with the properties, the initial properties and values as needed. So this is going to be a form that's just going to collect user information, first name, last name, email, phone number, let you put a password in, and we're not doing protected passwords, encrypt anything, just basic. How do we get the information? Also, we'll do a checkbox in here. So let's say this would be for the Coding Academy. You can choose to be in the day class or the evening class or both because it's a checkbox. And then also have search for comments or property for the comments. Okay. So I'm going to say first name. That's going to be empty string. Last name, also an empty string. Almost all these are going to be empty strings. Email, guess what? Empty string. Username, you guessed it, empty string. Phone, empty string. Password, empty string. I'm going to say day class. I'm going to set this to true. Evening class, I'm going to set that to false. And comments, going to be empty string. And what I'm going to do, just for the sake of me doing it, I'm going to alphabetize these. Just because I want to. You don't have to do that. This is not necessary at all, but that's just what I'm electing to do right here. So I got comments, day class, email, evening class, first name, last name, password, phone, username. Cool. And so now that I got that, if I want to, and I'm going to do it right here, I just want to do a simple test. That's console.log form data. Okay, so I'm going to console, just make sure everything looks good. Come back over here and inspect. So in the console. And there I have, let me erase that. So there I have my object, my form data. Cool. All right. So that's that. My object is done. We have initialized state. So we're good there. Now we are ready to start on the form component. Okay, so this form component is going to be a child of app. Okay, I mean, we could also do a header. Yeah, why not? Let's do a header as well. Okay, so I'm going to make a header component real quick, and then we'll go into form. All right, so let's do that. Here in my components, I highlight components. Going to create a new file. So I'm going to make a header.js. Okay, and also going to make a form.js. Okay. I'm gonna come over here inside of header, start this up. I'm just going to say const header. I'm going to add some props in here later, but not right now. Just going to say return H1 right there. Just real simple. Just say hello user. I'll just put that there for right now. And then export default header. Matter of fact, since we are using Bootstrap, I mean, we might as well, let's come over here and add a container. So div class name. Again, we got to remember to use class name with React. So class name container. Move this baby up in there like so. And I'm going to give this a class name. I'll just say text center. Just do a little styling, a little profiling. All right. So there goes my header. Looks good. I'm going to go ahead and import that into my app. So import header. Cool. And and I'm going to remove this app.js, and I'm going to put my header component in the return. I should see hello user. I do. Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to remove this console as well. I don't need that. Okay, so I got that, and now I want to go ahead and start on this form. Okay, so I'm going to open up form.js. And so we're going to use ID here, but we'll see what that looks like. But let's start off just getting the form built up. So const form, and I'm going to say return. For right now, just going to put an H1. It's just going to read form. Again, I do this only to make sure that my components are connected. I always start off like this. Now, if you're better than me, you don't need to do it, fine. But I'm aware that I'm not a perfect developer, right? Just a good looking one. But I'm gonna I make mistakes. All right. So I'm gonna come over here, make sure that I got my stuff connected before I do any kind of work. So I'm exporting form, come over here to app, and I need to import it. So import form. All right. And then right below header, I'm going to add form. Okay. And there it is right there. Cool. We are connected. And now we want to build out this form. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to, again, make some comments over here. I'm pressing. All right. So secondly, we want to build the form. All right. So we need to make sure to add these input elements. Well, we need to add this to the input elements rather. Make sure add to add to input elements. So we got to make sure we add the type. So we need to know what the type is for this input. We need to give it an ID. We need a name. We need a value. And then what we're also going to need, we'll add this later, but we did this before. We need to add the onChange attribute, okay? And we're going to use a button, okay? And we need to add on this button the type submit, because it's going to be a button that submits the information. All right. So now that I got that, we can start on this form. Okay. Yes.
Question. When it comes to entering in the HTML in these JavaScript files, can we theoretically just type it all out in HTML and copy paste it over?
I mean, you can if you want to. If that's easier for you to do that, that's fine. Now, the only thing is, remember that this is JSX and not HTML. So some things are a little different. Again, like instead of using class, you got to use class name in JSX. For labels, instead of for, you have to say HTML4. But I mean, if you just want to have like a structure, I mean, you can also build a snippet that's readable in JSX. So, I mean, you know how to build snippets now. So, if you want to do that, that'll work just fine. Should probably make a simple form snippet, but at some point I will, I suppose. All right, so here we go. Good question. So here in the form, I'm gonna add my fragments there, and now I'm going to place, I'll say a div, class name, container. All right. And now I need to do my form. So I'm going to say form. I'm going to give it a class name form. And I'm going to add this attribute here. I'll do it later. But we're going to add an on submit here as well. We'll come back to that. So here's my form. I'm going to put an H2 right here. Give it a class name text-center. And also add text capitalized. And I'm just going to say enter the information below. Something pretty simple. All right. So now let's get this form going. I'm going to make a div class name. Use Bootstrap MB-3 and row. So I'm going to make a little row right here. And inside the row, I'm going to make a column. I'm going to say div class name call-auto. You can look that up in Bootstrap to see what that actually does for you, if you need to, if you're curious. All right. And so now we're about to add our labels and inputs. So before we do that, what I want to do is add the hook use ID. Use ID is a React hook which will generate a random unique ID for you. Okay, we'll see what that looks like. But I need to import it just like I do any other React hook. So I'm going to, up here at the top before my component, I'm going to say import use ID. There it is. So import use ID from React. Okay. And the very first thing that I do here above my return, I'm going to instantiate it. Okay. So I'm going to say const ID gets use ID, open close parentheses, because again, the open close parentheses means that we are instantiating a function or a method. We're calling it in. And if you want to, we can console.log ID. All right. Some console ID, and there it gives me the ID right there. If I refresh it, oh, okay, just give me that one right there. Cool, whatever. Let's roll with it. Let's come back over here. All right. So I don't need you. So back down here in this first column, this will be the information for the first name. So I need a label element because we want to be good developers who are thoughtful, make our web applications accessible. So HTML4, because again, this is what we were talking about earlier. With a label in HTML, you use the for attribute. Here inside of JSX, we use HTML4. So HTML4, and I'm going to break off into the land of JavaScript in here. So I'm going to say ID, let me add a little space, ID plus, and then I'm going to say inside of these quotes, dash first name. So that's going to be ID. Class name, I'm going to use Bootstrap form dash label. And I'm also going to say text capitalize. And right here, I'll just say first name. Okay. And that's the label. Now I need to do the input. So input, remember we need to add the type. And the type is going to be text. I'm breaking all these off on separate lines so to make it a little more readable. ID, the ID needs to be the same as the HTML4 label attribute. So ID plus dash first name. We'll come back to the value, but right now it's going to break, but I'm going to leave that empty string. When we add our props in, then we'll fix that up. Also, the on change, which again we'll add later. Class name is going to get form dash control, and I want to make this required. So just add required, and that's it. And I need to close up the input, and that's it. And so this is the format of it. So I have that. So now I'm going to do the exact same thing for my last name. So I'm just going to copy this entire column. Copying that column, and then I'm going to paste it right below, and then just change this to last name. Change this to last name. Change this to last name. All right. And that is going to be it for that row. So underneath that row, I'm going to make a new row. It's going to be structured the same, div with a class name, MB-3, and row. And this is going to be, I'm going to put my email, username, password, all those three in there. They're going to look the exact same as, well, almost the exact same, but they're going to look very similar to the label of input here. So I'm just going to paste that 3 times because I need, was it username, email, and password. And so I got those 3 divs in there. Okay. So we'll come to this first one right here. And so this is for the email. So ID, I'm going to change this to email. Okay. Change this text right here to email. Change this to email. So here for the type, instead of text, I want this to be email. And that's just to validate, to say, hey, this has to be formatted like an email. Otherwise, you can get rid of this foolishness. I seem to have forgotten some attributes that are needed. We need the name attribute in the input. So we got type, ID. I forgot the name. So this name right here needs to be first name. We're definitely going to need that. This one here, the name needs to be last name. Like I said, I'm not a perfect coder. Who amongst us is? Okay, and so the email right here, the name is going to be email. Yeah, we definitely need that. So value, see class name is going to be form control, make that required. Yep. And then over here, username. So this would be ID plus username. Make this username. Okay. The type is going to be text. Okay. That one is cool. I need to add the name attribute. The name attribute, excuse me. So name is going to be username. Make it required. All that's good. Okay. And then password. However you spell it inside of your form data object, when we initialize state, that is how it needs to be spelled inside the form. Okay, and the type is going to be password, ID, password. Okay, and need to add the name attribute. All right, much better, much better. Okay, and so now I'm going to make a new row. So that's the end of that row. Make sure, yep. No, that's under the column. Let me clean this up a little bit because you know how I do. Let me see. I just need to tab that one over. There we go. That's that column. Yep, that's that column. I'm just going to do a quick check real briefly just to make sure that everything is nice and clean. And it is. So that's the column. So this should be end of the row, and it is cool. So now I'm going to make another row right here. Same thing, div class name, MB-3 and row. And then I'm going to add my column, div class name, call dash auto. All right, and now I'm just going to type this one out by hands. I'm over here trying to be quick. Label, HTML4, and this is going to be for ID plus phone. Yeah, because we got that. So phone, class name, it's going to be a form dash label and text capitalize. And this is going to say telephone number. Mr. Telephone Man, there's something wrong with my life. Input type is going to be tel. That is the input type. ID is going to be ID plus phone. Name is going to be phone. Value, again, I'm going to leave that as an empty string for now. All that is going to change. Class name, form dash control. And that is a Bootstrap class. So you may need to check and make sure that, depending on which version of Bootstrap you're using, make sure that that Bootstrap class is still functional. I know once upon a time, I think Bootstrap 3, I want to say that I was using. And there's a class particularly for fluid images, responsive images. And the class, I believe, was image-responsive. And then I think Bootstrap 4 or 5 changed it. to image fluid, and I'm sitting there wondering why my images weren't working the way that they need to, is because I had to update the class. Yes, sir.
I have two questions.
All right.
The first is our quotations. I noticed you're switching back and forth between double and single quotes.
Yeah, it do
Does
not
that matter for the HTML?
It do not matter.
And second question, I also noticed you're putting spaces before, like right after the curly brackets.
Yeah.
Is that just for readability? Or
Yeah, and I should clean that up a little more. I should come over here, and I like for it to be readable, right? We know coding is already fun, and so I like for the readability. I like it to. I don't want issues with all the stuff being clustered together. So that's why I do that. All right, I'm going to do this div. This is where my checkboxes are going to go. So div class name. It's going to be call dash auto. Also going to add form dash check to it. Going to add a label. HTML4. And this is going to be ID plus and then dash day class, like so. Class name, it's going to be form dash check dash label and text capitalize. And I'll say, hey, this for day class, my guy. I'm doing text capitalize, so I'll do that right there. And then I'm going to do input, and we haven't looked at inputs yet. Okay. Type is still a checkbox. I mean, we have looked at inputs, not checkboxes. Partner name WA. All right. And so checkbox ID for that is going to be ID plus day class. Name is going to be day class. Value right now, again, is going to be an empty string. And class name is going to be form dash check dash input. And I'm going to copy that one because I know I got all this stuff correct. So I'm going to copy this column, paste it right below. And instead of day class, it's going to be evening class. I don't, why would anybody want to do the evening class? I mean, it's like, you get to hang out with me during the day. Right? Right? Y'all don't sound convinced. I mean, yeah, I know you did, but everybody's like, you get to hang out with me during the day, right? Yeah.
Who teaches the evening class?
The teaching class is taught by Jessica. She teaches in the evening. She's a senior in Starkville. So she's the one who teaches the evening. She's great. I mean, you're not wrong if you want to hang out with her. It's just, get to hang out with me. That's all. Anyways, so there's I'm checking, make sure I got everything. Yeah, checkbox, even cool. All right, and now I'm going to make one final, well, not one final, but I am going to do another row, and this is where the comments are going to go. So right below that, I'm going to make a div with a class name, MB-3 and row. Oh, I don't need a row. It doesn't need to be a row. That's right, because I'm not using columns. So this is going to be my text area, and we have not looked at text area yet either. But in here in the text area, ID, much like the other one, it's going to be ID plus and then dash up. Sorry, dash comments. Okay. The name is going to be comments. The value, empty string for right now. Class name is going to be form dash comments. I'm going to add a placeholder here. It's just going to say enter comments here. Calls equals 50. And I'm not certain about like placeholders with text area. I know that with other inputs, it's better to use a label as opposed to placeholder. I'm not certain how text area works. I'll find that out at some point. All right, and that's self-containing. So I got my columns, my rows in there. And now I'm doing one last div with a class name MB-3. And this is where I'm going to put my button. Okay, so in my button, class name is going to be, say, BTN. I'll just go BTN-primary, just using some bootstrap styling for that. The type, again, we mentioned that in the comments, the type needs to be submit. And I'm just going to add confirm right there. And whew, we can breathe. That is the form. Come over here and I'm going to move this for a little bit. And it should look like this. There we got our labels and inputs, first name, last name, email, username, password, telephone number. We got check boxes for day class, evening class. Also, we have our text area and our button. Okay, so that's the structure for the form. I wanted to do that. And then after we take a little pause, we're going to start working on getting this thing to actually work. All right. So see you in the next stream.